I was speaking at Pharma Excel conference today, and I think packaging counterfeits are going to be a key under the new US Food and Drug Safety Innovation Act, FDASIA. I think you will see a significant emphasis on supply chain security. So you need to start thinking about safety, quality, and security all together. So I will talk to you about a 9/11 that occurred for pharma with the heparin disaster, 2007, 2008. And with the amazingly rapidly increasing data integrity findings in India, I think we have a significant challenge ahead. And that was my challenge to the leaders of pharma companies in India. It's time to change the culture of quality here. Okay? This data integrity concerns are not going to go away, and unless there is a fundamental change and shift. So India is standing at a tipping point. They have done extremely well, but now they're under suspicion. 24 companies, some of the biggest companies, top companies in India, have data integrity issues, not just allegations. These are facts. And unless the management opens up their thinking, this is not going to go away. So that's really the message that I wanted to deliver to the top management and the Indian regulators, and I did that. And I thought I'll share a piece of that with you. I hope that keeping you late is worthwhile from that perspective, okay? Because you are doing a significant effort in avoiding counterfeits, making sure your packaging allows a detection and securing your supply chain from counterfeit perspective. But if you are under data suspicion, you are no better than a counterfeit, okay? That's really the message. So I did not have an opportunity to review your slides or review your presentations, but I just picked up somebody's slides on quality by design for packaging. And I think that's really the theme I wanted to build on. I started the initiative on 21st Century for Pharmaceutical Quality at FDA, led that, and so in some sense I coined the term quality by design, which was not new, but now I have coined the term cheating by design. So if you use the word cheating by design, you have to give me a royalty. Had to do that. But the point I want to make is why quality by design is the foundation of culture of quality, okay? This is the summary. I want to sort of make sure what I'm doing is I usually don't do GMP remediation work, but a couple of companies are in such deep trouble and the so-called GMP experts they have hired have not really helped. So as a panic situation, they called me. So I helped them out as a courtesy more than anything else. But my business, I don't get involved with GMP remediation. I'm focused more on R&D, taking complex products to market and long-term relationships and so forth. So, but quality by design is the mainstay. And I have seen a number of companies here trying to do quality by design. And unfortunately, it's nothing but getting a software program for design of experiment, punching in some numbers and wasting a year's worth of work and coming out with nothing. You really have to focus on asking the right question. And unfortunately, what happens in here is R&D is king. So you throw it over the wall, and poor QC and manufacturing guys have to deal with it, and they have no but to ghapla. So I have done surveys, I have talked to people, and I'm going to share with you a root cause analysis of why people have to cheat. And this is people who have actually talked to at major pharmaceutical companies. So this is the message. We do our best to develop our medicine and evidence to meet the needs of patients. We develop these products consciously, recognizing that quality cannot be tested into our products. We recognize that nothing is perfect, and there will be some errors in our design, systems, and procedures, or we may make mistakes in following said procedures. It is normal, easy, and rewarding to work with our quality management system without fear to detect, correct, and learn from our mistakes. In doing so, we act consciously in the interest of patients, especially when no one is looking, and we continually improve our quality by design and aim for right first time. So in some sense, I regret creating the quality by design term for the pharma industry because how misused it has been so far. And I'm hoping to share some thoughts on how to bring this back. So here was an article that was published in US confronting the illusions of quality in Indian generic manufacturing. There were 4 points of view presented here. Dinesh Thakur, the whistleblower from Ranbaxy, he took a position, data integrity requires stronger local enforcement. Callie, she is a consultant, says focus on India makes real data integrity problems. Focus on India masks real data integrity problem. I took the position empowering workers is the key to data integrity. And Takashi, my former FDA colleague, took the position of saying these are things we are finding. But the message clearly that I want to give is don't let anyone point a finger on the culture of India, okay? Because unfortunately, the messages that are coming out from India and the top people in India are not helping. And there's nothing wrong with the Indian culture. And I want to make that point strongly as we go along. I think there are issues which are human issues, and so these are global issues. So there's nothing pinpointing India. It just happens that a couple of FDA inspectors figured out how to inspect and they have wasted my taxpayer dollars for 10 years. I've been yelling at them because the issues they're finding now are no different from what have always been there, right? So my message to FDA, you wasted my taxpayer dollars. You came here and spent $50,000 per inspection and didn't find anything. So they have to do a better job. So FDA is training now people with the skills of Peter Baker, 20 more people for India, and those skills are being used everywhere else. So in some sense, I think India has an advantage because these things were noted here, India will correct it, while other places are going to start going down. You start to seeing what's happening in Italy now. So these are not Indian issues. These are global issues. FDA happened to figure out how to inspect in India, and you're seeing that. But India has to take advantage of this situation in some sense, admit we have a problem, correct it. If they don't, then they dig the hole deeper. That's really the key point. And I had an opportunity to really examine this at a number of companies in India, and I felt that what's the difference between a fresh Indian graduate working in an Indian company or coming to America? It's the empowerment. It's the empowerment is the key here. And unfortunately, I was more blunt this morning with the secretaries of Indian government there. So I'm not being arrogant or blunt here. I've done this there, and at least they appreciated it. At least they didn't throw me out. So what is quality by design? I think quality by design comes out of a way of thinking philosophy that comes from Juran, from Deming, and others, which really laid the foundation for the quality revolution that occurred in the automobile industry in Japan, right? So there are more companies in India which have won the prestigious Deming Prize than any other country. So I would say there is a silent revolution of quality happening in India. Unfortunately, none of that has ever filtered into the pharma sector. It is our engineering companies which are doing so great, right? What's the difference? The difference primarily being that engineers in India and elsewhere have a general appreciation for systems. They approach problem solving differently, and they have the mathematical skills. Things like statistics are fundamental, and unfortunately within pharma, I don't see that, especially in India. So the challenge at hand is that of human reliability. It's a global issue. I don't think you can see the slides. The print is small, but I'm sure the slides will be available to you. We must do certain things consciously and cultivate some good habits subconsciously. The point I'm making is 90% of our decisions during the day, we think are conscious decisions, but they happen to be subconscious decisions. Our habits play a role, right? And we have to find a way to make conscious decisions. And here is where I rely on behavioral economics to define irrational behavior. I think irrational behavior biases thinking fast and slow, provides a basis to talk about these things without finger pointing. Gandhiji said, if I point one finger at you, how many fingers are pointed at me? How? Three. Because a lot of people say 4. I said, not for me, my thumb goes up. So where do corporate managers schooled in rational assumptions go from here? I start with this, with the notion that I think if you look at one of the biggest scandal of the decade occurred in the US in the year 2007, 2008. You know what scandal that was? This is a financial scandal, correct? So I will build it on that purpose, and since what happened there? None of the CEOs have really gone to jail. They put a few people there. Much of the taxpayer dollars my taxpayer dollars went to bail that out. The people who cheated got bailed out. So here is where we have to draw the line. So this is where even US that does not have any right to point any fingers on India, for example. That's the point I'm making. When organizations acknowledge and anticipate irrational behavior, they can learn to offset and avoid those damaging results. So the question really is there a culture of error management where there is a genuine effort to learn from mistakes, or is it one of error aversion where errors are avoided at all cost? And I think this is where the challenge is. Without the empowerment and without the notion of error management, we run into these problems. The typical scenario is with a generic drug product, hell with development, get the filing in, we'll think about development afterwards. Huh? File first is the key. And that's the #1 red flag in FDA now. Every first filer is now a suspicion of data integrity from India now. That's what FDA has said publicly, right? So it's about time FDA opened their stupid minds to think about that. Because this amounts to a generic drug scandal which happened the few years before I joined FDA. And that was the lesson that they could have learned, and they didn't learn that. The whole notion of quality by design and so forth was built for that. And after I left, unfortunately, that didn't progress. So I have the right to yell at them. So doing things consciously is something that stayed with my mind at one of the last FDA advisory committee meeting I held, in my last advisory committee meeting I held in October 2005. And this was a presentation by the Pharma Trade Association to FDA on the topic of achieving and demonstrating quality by design with respect to drug release dissolution. And the point that Chris Cinco, who was the vice president for R&D at Pfizer then and now at BMS, he made was features of quality by design means doing things consciously. So that's a phrase that stayed with me after I left FDA, and I sort of brought it back to connecting it to quality by design. So doing something consciously or subconsciously when we do something consciously, we are trained to that as professionals. Either you're a scientist or an engineer or you're in management. Scientific methodology, engineering design, plan, do, check, and act, those things are really what makes us do things consciously. So quality management system really has to do plan, do, check, and act, really is the basis of this. Subconsciously, we have some habits, which are good habits or bad habits. And if you have bad habits, you have to work to get rid of those. If you have good habits, or you cultivate good habits. There is a story which I will not get a time to go through this in the book called Power of Habit, Why Do We Do What We Do in Life and Business, is the story of a company called Alcoa, which is the Aluminum Corporation of America. And their CEO focused on one thing only. He said, forget the market, forget everything, focus on building a culture of safety. Because the aluminum manufacturing company, a lot of accidents happen. And that really revolutionized that company. It's still going gung-ho, very strong. But I thought it will be useful to connect the Alcoa there to Alcoa of data integrity. The US law requires several things for data integrity, and that is A, attributable, L, legible, C, contemporaneous, O, original, and A, accurate. So if you miss any of those, you have a concern of data integrity. And in India, what you're seeing now is a number of times, even MHRA woke up, and they're catching people in India making the data while they are there. अरे यार, उल्लू के पट्टो, नहीं है तो नहीं है बोलो. वहाँ बैठ के बना के पकड़े जा रहे हैं, ये क्या हो रहा है? What we forget often is we make two products. Real medicine and the evidence. And both have to be better than placebo. Right? See, placebo effect is a very powerful effect. It's our natural effect to heal ourselves. So the medicines we make leverages that effect, but provides something addition to that. That's the reason for approval of a drug. Okay? So the evidence makes the drug a drug. I could have given a sugar pill to the patient, 60% of the patient would get this beneficial effect. But that would not be considered ethical medicine in the evidence-based medicine paradigm. Correct? So in March, I toured India and literally met every chairman or managing director in India. I said, Baba, problem hai malum, but quality achhi hai. I said, chairman, you don't have evidence to say quality achhi hai now. Right? But the mindset is this, quality is good. So this is actually what I'd done for a training program in Bangalore, a company which is under data integrity scrutiny, to say, because this became a regulatory requirement, they committed me to do this so that FDA will be a bit maybe soft on them, that's what they assume. But I've been training right from the chairman to the front line on this. So that's the message I'm giving to them. I'm just sharing that with you. So evidence of benefit and risk is collected carefully in well-controlled clinical trials. But the key is you have to demonstrate that safety and efficacy is better than placebo. Especially because every drug has side effects, every drug has risk. So when you give that delta over placebo, you have to make sure that the risk it poses is acceptable. Otherwise, I would simply go with the sugar pill, and I'd be happy with that, right? So at the moment, this is what's happening at FDA. In July 21st, FDA, a stern warning on data integrity was given, saying there will be no tolerance. So if the agency's trust is lost, it will be difficult to earn it back, posing challenges far beyond an initial manufacturing setback. Complete honesty after a slip-up will go a long way. Although India and China have been the current focus, FDA is seeing data integrity breaches everywhere to some degree. It's everywhere to some degree because I don't know whether you know Peter Baker, the young chap who figured out how to do this, has been in India. Until FDA trains people like him, it'll be India focused. But I can guarantee you, as soon as The FDA scales up that inspection process, it will be everywhere, including US, okay? So here is an advantage for India. Here is an advantage for India. Everyone will be struggling. So let's correct it and get back on the path to success, right? So now, most of the data integrity issues are happening on the manufacturing side. So do you think FDA believes it's only manufacturing? No, 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 no. Every application is suspect. But how the hell do you do this properly? So FDA is working to change that. Next month, in a few weeks, you will see a new office, the proposed Office of Pharmaceutical Quality will be established. And this will bring reviewers and compliance, CGMP compliance in one office. Because at the moment, they don't talk to each other. It's a silo mentality. Unless they bring it together, they can't get to the application integrity effectively. The only company listed on application integrity at the moment is Ranbaxy. But if that too, the FDA has taken such a big beating saying, come on, 8, 9 years, and what? They have been in GMP remediation for that, and now one more plant, you find massive data integrity. What's happening here? So FDA is taking a beating in the US because people are questioning, why such a long time? So you have to connect CMC review to CGMP compliance, and that's in the works. Sorry, I didn't anticipate the screen to be so small, so I'm not going to read that, but we'll make sure the slides are available to you. But the key message here is, what does it take to come out of the GMP crisis? You need persuasive demonstration of 1, ability to face facts, 2, legal requirements, 2, 3, systems approach, and 4, changing behavior and culture. So what is often missed is, or is unconvincing, is how you, how you will strengthen culture of quality. And the key message there is, if you don't believe it, you can't convince anybody else. No? You can hire the top consulting firm from US, they'll sit there, they'll probably sit there for 5 years, but they won't convince anybody, because unless you believe it. So the problem, one of the problems in India that I have seen, in fact, the whole day today at Park Hyatt in the other session, we don't talk straight in India. If you want to talk straight like that, you'll go like that. Huh? We have to define the context. So people who were asking questions to me took 10 minutes to get to the question. They've been talking. I said, I have to stop them. What was your question? You took such a long time to get to your question with all the background you gave me. I don't know what your question is anymore. See, the typical Asian communication is never get to the point, whereas English, US discussion is straight to the point, right? You have to get to that, especially in your communication with FDA. Here's my evidence that connects to links, and this connection is warranted because of this reason. So, although I was born here in Secunderabad, grew up in Mumbai, but I've been in America for 35 years now. So, but I have retained my Indian accent. No, I have wrong statement. I have not acquired an American accent. I only eat Indian food, but I talk straight, but without finger pointing. So, sorry. So these are the topmost, very latest list of data integrity issues. Not recording activities contemporaneously, backdating, fabricating data, copying existing data on new data, rerunning samples, thank you so much, discarding data. So these are the top, by the way, you gave me an open bottle, huh? No, I'll tell you a story of that. This was published in Financial Express a few months ago. I don't know whether you read that or not. So the Financial Express got hold of the WOCARD EIR, and Peter Baker wrote that, and he was served an open bottle. And he wrote in that, according to Financial Express, FDA needs to take emergency measures when they come to this inspection because they try to harm me. I'm not joking. I don't know how far Financial Express is true, but I'm just reading the Financial Express for you. So. No, but देखो ये cultural communication हो जाता है ना, तो that's the I just took advantage of this to tell you the story. So here was a message from FDA on 15th of July. It may take more than a letter to resolve this issue. More than a letter means it is taking into consent decree or so forth. So if you look at the data integrity aspects, warning letters in 2013, 31% of the warning letters had data integrity issues. Until 14th of July, 2014, 92% of the warning letters from FDA had data integrity concern. But this is the point I want to make. I think I see some people blaming jugaad and chalta hai as an attitude towards that's causing this. I don't think so. I think chalta hai, yes, it can be bad, but chalta hai is an aspect of forgiveness, a way to relieve pressure, correct? So chalta hai attitude is not there in US. So what do they take out the gun and shoot each other, right? So there is a good aspect of jugaad, there's a good aspect of chalta hai, and there's a misuse. That's not the root cause of this. That's what I want to get to the root cause of this. But I want to sort of position this with this statement. You remember the Fukushima nuclear disaster, right? So when the investigation was completed, this is what Kurakawa, who was the chairman of the investigation committee, said. We must admit very painfully is that this was a disaster made in Japan, okay? Its fundamental cause are to be found in the ingrained conventions of Japanese culture, our reflexive obedience, our reluctance to question authority, our devotion to sticking with the program, our groupism, our insularity. That's what he said. So he took the blame on the Japanese culture. If you remember, it was a tsunami which triggered that accident and so forth. But still, so there was a swift reaction by a Professor Gerald Curtis from Columbia University in the Financial Times. He says, to pin the blame on a nation's culture is the ultimate cop-out. If this is Japanese culture, then we are all Japanese. The question really is there a culture of error management where there is genuine effort to learn from mistakes, or is it one of error aversion? Where errors are avoided at all costs, people can be expected to be metaphorically dragged out into the alley as a prelude to evidence of being covered up, right? Culture of error management. So I want to take you back to the guru of quality, which much of the FDA regulatory system is based on. Quality is everyone's responsibility. This is Deming. So learning is not compulsory, neither is survival. Lack of knowledge, that's the problem. If you don't know how to ask the right question, you discover nothing. If you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. Rational behavior requires theory. Reactive behavior requires only reflex action. Wherever there is fear, you'll get the wrong figures. That's selected quotes from Deming. So, and then he wrote the book Out of the Crisis in the year, it was 1987, but republished by MIT Press in 2000. I think to get out of the crisis, the journey requires leadership with profound knowledge as a guide. As leaders responsible for system change, top management is most in need for profound knowledge. And here, to give you a sense. So, here's a scenario, think about it. The chairman talking to the head of QA. You have a deviation, you have to investigate that, right? Make sure you investigate that correctly. But make sure the batch is released on time. Right? Oh, QA wala sab khada hai. Yes, sir, manage kar lenge. So I've got allergic to the word manage kar lenge in India. Huh? वो manage कर लेंगे माने वो कर दिया घपला. Because the middle layer in India is really in need for profound knowledge. I have met most of the chairmen and managing directors. They may not know quality, but they're relying on their people to assure quality. And here is the middle layer which says, yes, ho jayega. Because they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to tell the chairman, sir, this might not happen, because they can't say no. Yes, sir, bolne ki aadat ho gayi hai, but then the only way they have is to do something else. Quality is often determined in the boardroom. So my message to the chairman is, recognize this thing. Ask them, how will you do it? Because we have a tendency in India to incentivize results, not how you get to the results. Here, how you get to the results are more important than the results. Because FDA expects you will have deviations. FDA expects you will have out of specification results. But FDA expects you to have a good system to correct them. The average right first time manufacturing of a tablet or a solid oral dosage form is 60% in US. That means 60% of the time there is some mistake made, some investigation has to be done, and a root cause investigation is done, and some batches are rejected. For the last 10 years, what I've seen everywhere is India has been 100% right first time. The notion of, so my message to the FDA is, now you're telling me data is too good to be true in India, ye kitne akal mari gayi thi, tumko pehle nahi malum hua ye? Right? So FDA says data is too good to be true. Absolutely it is too good to be true, if I look at the benchmark. Or India is so great in this manufacturing efficiency compared to the Americans. If so, now you have to prove it. That's the challenge now. So quality is often determined in the boardroom. Problems arise when management reacts to common cause or chance variations as if they were a special cause. Prediction based on theory provides a foundation for planning a course of action, plan, do, check, and act. The leader serves the people with a clear vision and guidance to empower them. To be empowered is to share ownership in identity. Giving people a certain degree of control over their work fulfills their pride of workmanship is a key. You have a magical example of that with the Dabbawalas in Mumbai. Okay? FedEx, big logistics supply chain people go and learn from Dabbawalas. Right? So, my chairman Dabbawala se kabhi baat kare kya? Nahi, kabhi nahi baat kare. Harvard University calls them to give them lectures. Huh? So, how you turn something ordinary to extraordinary, kinse seekho? Dabbawalon se seekho. Right? The training program is exquisite. Training program in the pharma companies is pathetic. 10-minute instructions on SOP, 5-minute exam, 100% pass. Huh? So how will things happen? So the point is, you cannot blame people. And this is what FDA has adopted. They will be using this more and more. We cannot change the human condition, but we can change the conditions under which humans work. James Reason. What he said was, don't blame the operator immediately. You start with a systems approach. Accidents, deviations, errors happen because the defenses we have in various layers of our defense line up. Think about every layer of defense we have as a Swiss cheese with holes in it. So organization, policies, and management. So wherever I've gone, I've asked people when I'm training, usually I'm in the conference room, there's a quality policy on the wall. So what does it say? No idea. In one case, I talked to a managing director. He said, you should know your quality policy before you meet with FDA. Do I have one? Was the answer. So you have quality policies sitting on the wall, and no one knows anything about them. So it starts with that. It goes to team and supervisor with production pressures and fear of error, and then there are design flaws in the defenses like the computer systems that you have. And when those things line up, that's when errors, mistakes happen. So what is the key difference? What is the key measure of high reliability organization? Perhaps the most important distinguishing feature of high reliability organization is they expect to make errors and train their workforce to recognize and recover from them. In India, error is not tolerated. They continually rehearse familiar scenarios of failure and strive hard to imagine novel ones. Instead of isolating failures, they generalize them. Instead of making local repairs, they look for systems reform. So here is a 483 example. of an Indian company. So if you look at it, it goes from records are not completed contemporaneously, observed analyst backdate the logbook. This was so horrible. The inspector walks to the next room and he sees the HR guy filling out the logbooks. He said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm making pakde." So FDA has now put a time limit on they request you a document, it has to be provided to them in 10 minutes. So in one case, the next room was where they were manufacturing the documents needed. I had to, forget it, got caught. So these are no more longer allegations, huh? These are pakde gaye. Trial injections, out of specifications not investigated, overwriting electronic batch records, results failing specifications are retested until acceptable results are obtained, appropriate controls are not established. So if I line up all these observations, this is one company, observations. Unfortunately, the inspectors were not smart enough to line that up, so I had to train them. See, if you line up, you see more. So, so don't you see, from individual to system failure, which each additional observation is a confirmation of a system with intentional holes in it? And this is not your small company. This is one of your top 3 companies. So I talked to one of, I had an opportunity to talk to a QC analyst who the company was firing after something like this happened. So results failing specifications are retested until acceptable results are obtained. So that was the key. So I interviewed this guy. Oh, wait a minute. So one more thing. So here is an example of a company after same observations 4 years ago, serious enforcement action, GMP remediation, third-party oversight, third-party data integrity training, सब हो रहा है, वही वापस हुआ. तो क्या फायदा हुआ इसका? So let's look at how do we think of behavior. So what reminds me is this. I think given that I'm back home here, grandmother की याद आ गई. She always used to say, keep your niyat clean. Na? अपने सब, nothing more than that. So our intention is really a predictor of our future behavior. And I'm not saying that because my grandmother said, I'm saying that because there's scientific evidence to that. और देखो मैं बोलते चले जाऊँगा, ड्रिंक्स मैं ख़त्म करता हूँ थोड़ा. जल्दी ख़त्म करता हूँ. The key is this: attitude towards the behavior, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control. Right? That determines the attitude. So let me share with you this interview, and then I'll share with you how the culture of quality comes, and then we can have drinks and talk about it. Okay? So when I talked to this person, a young chap, okay, a young chap, I felt so bad about after talking to him was this. He said, "Why did you do this?" Nobody told him to do it, actually, in this case. He said, "Look, everybody keeps telling him the company process validation is done, so quality is good. Test is prone to error, so batch failure means I made the mistake. Therefore, I was saying, if I made the mistake, I'm testing it again and again till I get a passing result." So I said, "Do you know it's wrong?" He said, "Yeah, but there's not a problem with this." He said, "Why? Documentation is not critical. Compendial testing is sufficient. Indian regulators collect and test samples. No issue here." So what that means is he was able to rationalize his behavior and not worry about it. So in behavioral economics, we take the position like this. There is a group of people, very small percentage, like Gandhiji in his older age, not in his young age, Mother Teresa and so forth, the saints, never cheat. Huh? Then there is a group here on the left, which you guys are trying to protect from, the counterfeiters and the criminals, and all of us in the middle, right? What's the distinguishing feature we have? We all cheat, but just a little. Enough so that in the next day in the morning, we look at ourselves in the mirror, we can rationalize it, right? We break the system, we break the rules every time we get, but we don't think it's important. Driving in US 55 miles, and I always drive at 65. The 10 miles upar. Chalega. So that's what it means, and these things fall into that category. But this is something which I found amazing. They said, have you read this? You're treating compendia as God, huh? Here? But have you read this? Notice that is a disclaimer that is in the compendia. That the similarity to statistical procedure may seem to suggest an intent to make inference to some larger group of units, but in all cases, statements about whether the compendial standard is met apply only to the unit tested. And no one has read that. I've presented this to over 2,000 people in India. Nobody has seen this. So let me quickly talk to you about the heparin disaster. The heparin disaster occurred in US because of contamination. I'll quickly go through that. The FDA reported 149 people dying, mostly started with the Children's Hospital in Missouri. QC testing doesn't detect anything. Pharmacovigilance worked, but late, 149 people died in US, starting with children, right? So if you think compendial testing saved that, no. Compendial testing didn't find anything here. So here is what one of the congressmen says. When the drug safety system fails, people get sick, some die. It is hard to detect harm. Some of these people are already very vulnerable, and proving the cause of harm for impurities, adulteration, and counterfeit can be elusive. FDA inspectors look for a culture of quality at manufacturing site, and fortunately, they screwed up here. So then he goes on to say the systems approach wasn't in play. And then he questions the culture of quality in China. But even there, I would say, don't blame any country, blame the organizations. So culture of quality is going to be a key phrase that you will hear again and again from the FDA. And one simple way of thinking about culture of quality is, what is culture of quality? And how does it relate to quality management system, and how does it relate to good practices? And this is the course I developed for a number of people, for companies here, and it starts with the fundamentals. And I'll skip to that in some sense, and I'll simply, all right, let me just share with you what culture of quality as we can take a break and enjoy some drinks. The way I define culture of quality is an environment like this room that facilitates individuals, all of us, to consciously think in the interest of patients and to improve that ability continually. That's it, nothing else. So there has to be something that predicts culture of quality, and then we need to know something that allows people to change behavior, and we cannot just do something without a system. So we work within a system, and we need to know that our quality management system is reliable. And then that quality management system needs to facilitate behaviors which are compliance oriented. So to teach people on the front line, I devised this simple thing. I say 1, 2, 3 are the reasons why people change behavior. A, B, C, D are the reasons why, what makes a quality system reliable. And X, Y, Z or X, Y, Z are the behaviors that ensure proactive compliance, right? So in one young lady from the QC lab, she was the front line, she said, A, B, C, D means anybody can dance. And I have taken that from her, and it really is that, right? So what is this? What is 1, 2, 3? What is A, B, C, D? What is X, Y, Z or X, Y, Z? So what I do in this training program is I connect the dots. So what are the things that predict culture of quality? When do people change behavior? What makes a quality management system reliable? And what are the behaviors that make compliance proactive? Simple as that, right? Nothing more. So this is a paper which did an excellent job of researching what are the things that make culture of quality what allows culture of quality to manifest. And this is by Ashwin Srinivasan and Brian Corey in Harvard Business Review, April 2014. Only 4 things. Nothing else matters. Leadership emphasis, message credibility, peer involvement, employee empowerment, right? Leadership emphasis, I gave you an example, right? The chairman saying to the QA guy, quality is important. But his message is, make sure you do the investigation right, but release the batch on time. Huh? So message is not credible. So peer involvement would simply mean that if I'm afraid to say no, at least I have my peer who can say, sir, we have to follow the procedure, and if the investigation comes out, we may have to reject the batch. But eventually, if no peer is around, everybody is empowered to ask back. Simple as that, right? Why do people change behavior? Because it is normal to do, it is rewarding to do, it's easy to do. Nothing else, right? So simply act consciously in the interest of patients, especially when no one is looking. It is normal to do, it's rewarding to do, it's easy to do, and in a room or in an organization, culture of quality manifests because of leadership emphasis, not the quality policy on the wall, message credibility, no mixed messages, peer involvement, and employee empowerment. And then what remains is ABCD, and here you simply rely on the Deming's philosophy, the profound knowledge, appreciation for a system, right? So if I take that conversation between the QA and chairman, why is the QA guy saying, yes, sir, ho jayega? Because his bonus, his salary depends on one person. There's no HR systems which honestly does effective evaluations and so forth in development plans in most companies. So appreciation for a system is at low levels. And most of the time, every morning we get up, we try to bypass the system because the systems are bad. But once you get in the organization, we continue that. Theory of knowledge. Without theory, there is no learning. Asking the right questions. And we don't know how often to ask the right questions. Knowledge about variation. Statistics is missing. Special cause, common cause, statistical process control is essentially absent in most of the pharma companies. If you just go outside with the engineering companies, you have magical solutions out there, right here in India. Knowledge of variation, human behavior, and so forth. So in a sense, what I've done is sort of connected the dots to ABCD, and the last element of is culture of error management. How do you feel when you make an error in your organization? Like that guy with things like that? Or what I've seen in India is very smart Indians. The guy with the phone. Oh God, Peter Baker is coming to inspection here. Let me find a job somewhere else. Huh? Or finger pointing or yelling. So we have to remove from that, and the way to remove that is fear of error has to be reduced, mastery orientation, training has to be effective, communicating, analyzing errors, error correction, learning from errors, leading to quality by design right first time is the key. Awareness, anticipation, and risk-taking. You have to take risk. Without taking risks, you don't progress. But risk-taking has to be encouraged. But anticipating that mistakes can happen. And this really simply means is reduce fear of errors, remove the error strain, remove the reasons for covering up, awareness, improve awareness, anticipation, risk-taking, and then focus on very effective training. This morning, one principal from a college of pharmacy was there. He said, we are producing 100,000 bee farms from a number of schools, and he said, number of schools don't even have the professors. So we have, our education for bee farm has gone from what I had used to proudly look back, my bee farm education really helped me to do where I am, to where what I'm hearing is the quality of bee farms coming out of the schools of pharmacy has gone to really, really poor situations. Not in all schools, but in many schools. So quality by design right first time is really the goal of what we need to be doing. But recognizing that mistakes happen, nothing is perfect, we should be smiling even when we are doing error detection, communication, analyzing errors, and corrections. So that's what we need to be doing. So I will skip with that and simply come to my summary, which I started from. And that's the reason what I said, quality by design is the foundation for culture of quality. This is the training I do over a one full day, but I thought I'll give you a snapshot of that. Thank you for listening.
The concept of combining packaging and supply chain management is a wonderful idea, and the program integration between the packaging and SCM, the topic selected was excellent. It was not done just like that. It was done with a brainstorming session, and which they have yielded the best results in these 2 days.
Today it has been really important for the industry to understand the importance of the whole integration of automation with the enterprise level. Apart from the topic, I really liked the whole concept of assembling the industry experts. It was a good learning experience for me. I definitely would like to come back on the next conclave too.
In fact, like before I came here, so it was I was under the impression that like it is completely packaging related or supply chain related for a specific domain or an industry. But it was really a surprise. Like it is good to know that like diversified industries were there and the speakers were eminent speakers were there. So it was like a complete day. I could see that nobody left. So it was very interesting. Each session was well managed. So I think like hats off to the organizers.
And what is my takeaway from here? I think it's an education, and it's only when different elements of the supply chain actually interact and share knowledge. It's when we'll have a completely integrated product for our customers over there.